What's up, guys? If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Also, please smash that like button on the video and enjoy the show.
But you mentioned stolen valor. That's actually a big problem. So this just happened to me in Bali. This is kind of an interesting story. So a guy I know says, hey, man, I just met a Marine Lieutenant Colonel retired. He's Indonesian, but he was in the U.S. Marine Corps, came to the United States like age of 5 or something like that, blah, blah, blah. And he's here in Bali and showed me his resume. I go, wow, pretty cool, man. The guy was infantry, Marine Corps, Lieutenant Colonel, retired, all these things, good English. And so we hired him for a couple projects, and then, and I got him a job at this one place, and he was supposed to help with developing a security plan for a big New Year's Eve event. And I said, oh, you're in good hands. He's a lieutenant colonel. He knows all this stuff, all planning, blah, 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 blah. You're good, Well, that never materialized. And I'm like, and then the whole security plan went to shit on New Year's Eve. It was bad. It was disastrous. And I'm like, how did that happen? You got this guy, right? Well, this turns out this guy, I'll name his first name. His name is Chris. Turns out he was stolen valor. So things started not adding up after a while, right? And one of my friends that lives there is a former Force Recon Marine. Really good guy. And he goes, this is not adding up. He goes, I don't believe the guy was Force Recon because I was Force Recon. He goes, I don't remember this guy, no. So then I said, you know what, so I checked with, there's a couple of guys that do investigations, particularly in stolen valor, and they're on my internet. And I contacted them. I go, hey, can you look up this guy? They came back. Turns out the guy spent 4 months in the Army, basic training, got kicked out for cause, was a private. He was in the engineers, couldn't adjust to military life, whatever it was. And so what he did is he photoshopped his face on, dress blues, Lieutenant Colonel leaves and all that kind of stuff. The whole resume was bullshit, But now he's got a job with a client that I referred him to, making really good money, and he's supposed to be a security guy, and the guy doesn't know anything about security, which is obvious from the New Year's Eve event, right? And so I felt obligated to go to the owners of the company because they've been very gracious with me. I'm their consultant. They have my canines and all this stuff. And I go, this guy here is not who you think he is. And I showed them the evidence, and they were sitting on the fence because they're civilians. And they're like, we don't understand all this stuff. I said, bring him in, and we'll ask questions. He goes, you ask the questions, me. So I'm going to ask the question. So he sits down, and I said, dude, listen, you were a Lieutenant Colonel, right? Yes, Marine Corps. Yep. I said, what did you do? I was an infantry. I said, okay, what are the 5 paragraphs of an operations order? Everybody knows that. And it's not branch dependent, right? Because we have to work together sometimes. And he goes, well, it's different for every. I said, no, it's not different. I said, what are the 5 paragraphs, right? And he couldn't answer it. I go, come on, dude. I said, I'll start with the first one. I'll give you a hint. Situation, right? And he couldn't work it out, right? And he kept, what are you asking me all these questions for? What's going on here, right? He kept deflecting, right? And I told one of the owners earlier, I said, watch, he's a classic sociopath. I said, you will not get a rise out of this guy. He'll be very calm. His hands will be calm. Classic sociopath. And he was, dude. He was really stable. And I said, just let me work on him, right? So we did that for a little bit. Nothing happened. Okay, you worked in the command and staff section, correct? And there's actually 6 levels, right? S1, S2, S3, S4, S5, S6, right? S1 being personnel, S2 intelligence, S3 is operations, S4 is logistics, S5 civil affairs, and S6 signal. And so I said, okay, so you're a staff officer how long? And he answered, and I said, so what staff section were you in? Which one? And what is it? He couldn't answer that question either, right? So I knew I had him by the balls. He had no idea. He didn't do his work. And so we went round and round for a little while. And then finally he goes, okay. All right, I don't exist. And what is that? We're all like, what does that mean? He goes, I don't exist. He tried to pull the old, the military, destroyed all my records and stuff because I was doing secret operations, right? That whole shit, right? And then he asked if I could ask for them to ask me to leave the room so he could talk to him in private. I say, I'm gonna humor him. I'm gonna step outside. This is gonna be funny. Then he's trying to tell me he's a secret agent. They ripped off all this stuff.
Totally secret agent.
He doesn't
bro.
exist, but he's got himself on LinkedIn and all these other social media sites with his dress blues on, Colonel stuff, and so right there I popped him right there on the spot, and they fired him immediately. And
See, that's the stuff you do have to call out. Yeah, for sure.
Well, because he's making money, a lot of it, right? He's taking a job from somebody else that could have had that job on using stolen valor, and I've seen enough of these. I've seen so many of these guys. They're everywhere, and I'm on the lookout for them. And you can't bullshit a bullshitter, you know. And things just started not adding up after a while. And I go, this guy is not who he says he is. And boom, there he is. And he had a U.S. passport. And actually, technically, he could be deported because even though he's Indonesian, he doesn't have an Indonesian passport. He can only have one or the other, right? So, but he hightailed out of town really fast so we can catch him up with him and have immigration handle him. But they're everywhere. There's a lot of that going on, you know. And people are out there making money, lying about their military service. And it's disgusting. It's sad. And I have no tolerance for it, you know.
I don't know why some people... I mean, I guess like some of the lower level guys who do it, like that example, like it's just typical fraudster doing their thing. But there's other people, I don't know why they feel like they have to embellish their stories. They're already big. I mean, you talked about it. You knew Chris Kyle back in the day, and obviously he's sadly passed away. That was really tragic. And, you know, a lot of people know his story as it's been told through Hollywood now. And yeah, the guy, I mean, I've talked to people, like the guy legit was like a unbelievable sniper. That was all very real. But I think there were a couple different things, and one of them was, it had nothing even to do with the battlefield, but like he went on, and I've seen him tell the story, maybe he did it on like Opie and Anthony or something, you can find the video of it, but he went on and told a story about like how he beat the shit out of Jesse Ventura or something that, which never happened.
Right.
And Jesse's in like a tough spot because then the guy died and he's like a folk hero and everything. But Jesse was, I guess, righteously suing him before he died. And then years after he died, he won the lawsuit. Yeah. And it sucks because now the guy's got a widow and like, oh my God, are you beating up on like Jesse's in a lose-lose.
Right.
But I see stuff like that and I wonder, I mean, you can't ask Chris now, but I'm like, why do you have to say that? No one would have given a shit if you hadn't beaten up Jesse Ventura. Like, what do you think that is that some of these guys, usually after their career, obviously, feel like I gotta tell people I did that?
Yeah. A lot of weird things happen to you when you leave the service, particularly if you retire. You know, imagine this. If you're in special operations, you're 3 times more likely to die within 2 years than the average soldier. Why? Because you're used to traveling 100 miles an hour every day, and then all of a sudden you're in the civilian world doing 3 miles an hour. And so, you know, what happens? I've got a lot of friends that have committed suicide, drug overdoses. They start looking for that fix, that adrenaline, right? That they were so used to, they look for it. It's called operator syndrome, right? Allostatic load. And so you're under this allostatic load for all these years. It becomes the norm. It's like being on drugs all these years, right? But a good drug, good high, for a good reason. And all of a sudden that's gone. And now you're going, I need a fix, you know? And so guys go down the wrong road sometimes. Sometimes it's drugs, sometimes it's alcohol, or some other, adrenaline rush thing that they're going to do, or they just get really sedentary and they just, and it just pass. For me, I've never had a problem with drugs or felt suicidal or depression. I always jokingly tell people I always go back to the well and take a drink because that's what kind of keeps my sanity. So I do these other operations, singleton operations on my own, like going and recovering people. But it's not. You're
never really all the way out in a way.
I'm never really on the way out, right?
Thank you for watching the video, guys. Please hit that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.